With more than 3 million drivers on the road, you don't always know who you're stepping into an Uber with. Even with the intense Uber background checks, nefarious people can still slip through the cracks. Such was the case with the Uber driver killer, Jason Dalton. The Uber driver killer is the name given to Jason Brian Dalton. This former Uber driver fatally shot 6 different people in Kalamazoo, Michigan. 2 others were critically injured. The rampage was startling to those who knew Dalton. At the trial, he even pled guilty to first-degree murder of his own accord. When he committed the shooting, Jason Dalton was a 45-year-old insurance adjuster. He wanted to make some money in his downtime so he could take his family to Disney World. That's when he began driving for Uber. After the shooting, Dalton blamed the Uber app for his crimes. When the police interrogated him, Dalton told them that a devil head appeared when he opened the Uber app. He detailed how the app took over his mind and body. A couple of days before the shooting, Dalton's wife noticed he was quiet and tired. Besides this, she didn't see any unusual behavior in her. The day that he committed the crime, Dalton began accepting Uber rides like usual. This time, he brought his German Shepherd with him. While one passenger refused to get into the vehicle because of the dog, most of his riders had no issue with it. This includes Matt Mellon, who was one of Dalton's last rides. Mellon made polite conversation with Dalton for most of the ride. After a short phone call, Dalton's demeanor seemed to change. His driving behavior radically shifted too. He floored the gas pedal and began to drive recklessly. Mellon recounted that he drove into oncoming traffic, blew through a stop sign, and even sideswiped another car. Mellon begged Dalton to stop the car, and eventually, he did. After Mellon was out of the car, he called 911 with a bystander but received a lackluster response. Dalton returned home after letting Mellon out, but only to load up several of his guns. Afterward, he got back into the car and started accepting new rides. The next ride he accepted was for DL in Blackburn. However, there was a miscommunication, and Dalton ended up at the wrong pickup point. The trouble started when he got to the wrong pickup point. He pulled over to ask a woman, Tiana Carruthers, if she was the person he was supposed to pick up. Carruthers was leading several children through a playground. When she told Dalton she wasn't the rider, he pulled out his gun and shot her several times. After shooting his first victim several times, Dalton began picking up new riders. Despite her injuries, Carruthers survived. Dalton's riders during this time didn't notice anything unusual about Dalton. He didn't recklessly drive as he had with Mellon. Dalton's next victims were a father and son outside of a car dealership, and his last victims were 5 women inside a white van. 4 of the women died, but the final victim, a teenage girl named Abigail, survived a gunshot to the head. Even after killing 6 people, Dalton returned home shortly and then went out again to start picking up more Uber riders. Although he was driving with a loaded murder weapon in his coat, none of his new riders noticed anything different about Dalton. It wasn't until a couple of hours later that the local authorities arrested Dalton and took him into custody. At the trial, Jason Dalton pled guilty to all the charges against him, including 6 counts of murder, 8 felony firearm charges, and 2 counts of assault with intent to murder. At his sentencing, Jason Dalton received 6 life sentences without any chance for parole. Dalton received each life sentence for each life he took on the night of the shooting. The case of the Uber driver killer has raised some concerns about whether Uber is safe for riders. It's important to note that this killing spree happened in 2016, and Uber has added more safety features. Thanks for watching.